I spoke too soon. Hang on. Just get a few extra seconds here on the video. It's pretty good. Well, I forget how long this takes to start up every time. All right. Little bonus for you guys. Okay,
you've only been doing it for 9 years now. You'll get it.
Well, but my battery died on the first. I like people get the behind the scenes on the video version now. It's the battery died halfway through, so the thing wasn't on. All right, here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Story Studio podcast. We're doing another. I want to give like some sort of progress, like we're this far through, or we're the next.
It's impossible, Johnny. They're out of order.
We are right at the end.
We're at the last. This is the last one, at least for you guys. I don't know if we have more.
Not quite the last one, but like I think second.
Leave it to Neve.
We're at the end. All right. Glad I asked that question so that I could. I don't even know, but okay. So we're somewhere in the state of the industry. And, we've talked to a lot of people on these state of the industry and, hey, what's going on with this and going on with that? However, Apple is this mysterious sort of like, a creature that nobody sees hiding in the bush. And they don't really do a lot of public things like podcast interviews. So we're talking today.
Well, actually, they actively refuse them.
They actively refuse them.
Yeah.
And so we sort of asked for a recommendation of people who understood the Apple ecosystem and how to have some success there. And if you longtime listeners may remember, this is sort of how we met Julia Kent. And so also on the previous episode, you guys heard Mark Lefebvre, one of our favorite people in the world, and he talked about going wide in general because he's working with Drafted Digital, and he mentioned a group called Wide for the Win, which Erin runs. So she's our wide person. So welcome to the show, Erin. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Well, so first of all, with that intro, I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff. What else should people know about you?
Oh, sure. So I'm a contemporary Western romance author, and I full-time. This is what I do to pay my bills. I'm the primary breadwinner of the family, and I've been an author for about 4 years now, a little over 4 years now. And I run Wide for the Win. That's the important part probably for other authors, unless they happen to like sexy cowboys. Wide for the Win is the part that is going to be interesting.
Did you start the group, or do you run it now? Or both, I guess.
Yes, actually both. So it was my partner in crime, Susie O'Connell. She's also another contemporary Western romance author, and we have worked together on a bunch of different things. And I went to her and I said, I have this really insane idea. How do you want to do it with me? And, would that be cool? And she agreed because she's nuts. And we've been running it ever since. It's been about 18 months now. And we have company reps from a wide variety of companies. Mark Leslie Lefebvre is in the group from Drafted Digital, but we've also got company reps from Barnes & Noble and Google Play and sorry, I can't talk today. Written Word Media, which does Free Booksy, Bargain Booksy. We've got BookBub in our group. So we've got a lot of really big companies in our group, and we've got lots of small companies too. And so we all just work together in terms of figuring out how to be successful in the wide world. And don't feel too bad about Apple turning you guys down. They turned me down also to join the group. So
yeah, no surprise there whatsoever.
They're the only company that turned me down so far.
Us too. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Do you find any temperature difference between authors who are just really devoted to being on Amazon versus authors who want to be wide? What I mean isn't just the way they respond to any news, although I'm very curious about that, because I do feel like in general, Amazon devotees tend to be a little more reactionary than wide. Again, very, very general. I realize that's a very general statement, but also anecdotal is what I see. But also, just is there a difference between those authors because they're kind of approaching their craft from a fundamentally different perspective?
We do have a really different group, I feel like, because we are all either wide or working towards becoming wide. And it is a really different mindset. I wrote an article called Having the Wide Mindset and How That Helps You Be Successful. And it really just is fundamentally different from being in KU. And so I feel like although our group just barely passed the 3,000 mark a couple days ago, I believe, so we're not a huge group, but we are super active and very helpful, very dedicated to not just making a quick buck, but how are we going to do, excuse me, how are we going to do long term? Wide is a long game, KU is a short game. And so there isn't as much emphasis on how to game the system, how to, spike your page reads or whatever. These are people who are really dedicated to their author craft and then also dedicated to serving readers all around the world and across all platforms. And I'm not saying that you can't be that way if you're in KU, but there is a definite percentage of really dedicated authors who are wide, who want to reach all readers. And that's actually what it comes down to. If you are in KU, you're not getting into libraries. You're not reaching the Apple readers. You're not reaching the Nook readers. You are shutting yourself off from a wide percentage or a large percentage of the population of the world. And Amazon KU authors are fine with that. And I'm not. So, yeah.
Well, so I have a string of thoughts here. So the first is, clearly we're pretty old school because Mark is not Mark from Draft to Digital. That is Mark from Kobo.
Right? Yes.
That was his name. He offered to change it officially to Mark from Kobo instead of Mark Lefebvre.
Good thing you didn't do that.
Yeah.
That's like our buddy who got a story shop tattoo.
Oh, yeah, that's the worst. You have to change it into something else. And the second thing is just in general. So, well, and this is a comment too, and then I have sort of a question, is I really want to believe in wide. It gets harder and harder as you see more and more KU success stories. It fundamentally sort of just chafes me, the idea of putting all eggs in one basket. And we have fought against the idea of exclusivity for ourselves a lot. And then we keep getting, it's just like in Godfather 3, you get sucked back in, they pull us right back in. So I guess just sort of in general, like this is going to be the most global question ever, but how well is that working out for people? Because, every time we've tried, it's like, oh, we got to get sucked back in because KU is where the success is. And as much as I want to believe, we just haven't been able to do that whole hog for that reason.
Well, so probably part of the problem that you're running into is that you are not well served to go in and out of wide, back and forth between wide and KU. So just keep that in mind. When you do that, you are really hurting the algorithms of the wide storefronts. You are also decreasing the chance that you will be picked for in-house promos and things like that because
they think you don't really have any loyalty, right?
Exactly, yes. And so Amazon is all run by bots, right? There isn't a merchandiser sitting there going, I wonder what I should put on the front page and I should recommend to my readers. That doesn't happen on Amazon. It does happen on all other storefronts except for Google. Actually, Google Play is run by the Google search engine, and there are no merchandisers for Google either. But Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and Apple are all run by real human beings who will look at your track record and they will say, this person's hopped in and out of wide and KU several times. Why should I pick them over somebody else who's been dedicated and stayed wide this whole time?
And to be clear, it's not like it's a vendetta, like, oh man, they're not loyal.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck them. It's that they're trying to create a reader experience. And if they're recommending authors who may not even finish a series before pulling it out, because there's more, gold in them hills over there,
right,
then that upsets readers.
You've got it exactly right. Exactly. And so from a merchandiser standpoint, there isn't a lot of incentive to recommend and promote a book that from an author that tends to hop in and out. The other thing is just the algorithms in general. On a lot of storefronts, I shouldn't have said that, sorry. From Amazon's point of view, new is always best. And so if you take a book off Amazon for whatever reason and then you republish it, you're going to lose your reviews, but you're going to hop back up in terms of rankings because Amazon rewards that newness. On other storefronts, they actually reward longevity, and the Autobots and things are better and stronger the longer that book is live. So when you go live on a wide storefront and then you pull it after 6 months and you go back to that storefront later, you are starting over from ground zero. It's as if you've never been on that storefront before, and it's a hard slog when you start out at zero. And so to do that over and over again is actually like the worst ever.
That's really,
highly
really,
do not recommend.
yeah, that's great advice. I mean, just that polarity that Amazon rewards freshness and the other platforms reward antiquity. Like that is, yeah, Dave.
Do they penalize? Okay, what if you're an author that has some Kindle Select, but you have certain series that you do put wide? Would they penalize you if you stayed with those wide and you had a few that just never went there?
Yeah, so if you were to choose, okay, I've got 2 different series, and series A I'm going to put into Kindle Unlimited, and series B I'm going to put wide. As long as you aren't pulling those books off and on, I think that is probably a better solution in terms of merchandisers and in terms of your algorithm love on the wide storefronts. I do see the problems with that in terms of readers who find you on wide storefronts and who love your stories are going to be emailing you and asking you why they can't buy those books. And the people who read via Kindle Unlimited are going to be emailing you and asking you why they have to pay for your series, XYZ series, because they don't want to pay for it. That's why they have Kindle Unlimited. So you do end up with that issue.
So
one of my
real quick. So ideally,
sure.
really, it is you can dip your toe, but if you really want to be successful and wide, you really have to decide, I am a wide author.
You know, I told the Wide for the Win group just earlier today. I said, you know what happens if you walk down the middle of the road is you get run over. Like pick one side or the other, right? The middle of the road is where
Mr. Miyagi told that advice too.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I was an 80s child. So
Are you watching Cobra Kai? Just curious.
No, I don't have time, unfortunately. But in terms of people doing really well on wide, I actually feel like it's easier to do well on wide long term if you go wide and stay wide than it is to do well in KU long term, because in Kindle Unlimited you have to pour a lot of money into ads, and you have to be feeding the beast. You have to be doing rapid releases, and it's just a very high stress way of publishing, in my humble opinion. With being wide, I released my last book on October 1st of 2019. So it'll be coming up on a year in just a couple of days, and I won't release my next book until probably January, I'm going to guess. And so if I was a Kindle Unlimited author, I would be like suicidal, right? You can't go 13, 15 months without releasing a book.
One a month.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it isn't that I recommend going this long between releasing books wide, but the thing is that you can do it. And I really don't feel like you can, being in Kindle Unlimited. And the other thing is that I literally do not run any cost per click ads. I don't have a single BookBub, AMS, or Facebook ad running right now. I've literally never run a Facebook ad in my entire career. I have no idea how to do it.
I think it sounds sexy.
So what's the secret to having a very few books being released each year and being wide and still making a living at it? How do you
give
do
her $97 and ask her again?
No, I don't know. It's cool. So the success number one, or secret number one, is definitely getting BookBubs. I get a lot of them. I mean,
are they easier for you to get because you're wide?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. They lay that out on the website. They tell you flat out, if you are wide, you have a much better chance of being selected than if you're in KU. So that's definitely one of the big benefits of being wide. So I get a fair amount of BookBubs. Promo with other multi-author box sets. I do let's see, I put out my own box sets, and then I can put them into Kobo promos and things like that. And then I also do other paid newsletters. So I do Free Booksy, and I do, you know, Fussy Librarian, and my husband runs a newsletter promo company called Full Heart Romance. So it's for all for, you know, romance books. And so I promo my books in the paid newsletters. I have perma-frees. And so I have two different promo frees. I switch between them in terms of which ones I'm promoting on a given day to a given audience. And so I will run, like, let's say Free Booksy. In fact, I have a Free Booksy today, it turns out. So about every 6 months, I try to have a Free Booksy ad on one of my perma frees. And so I'm just constantly doing that low level ad running in the background on paid newsletters. And it's so much less stress than running cost per click ads, in my humble opinion. The other big thing is having a deep back catalog. I couldn't do this if I had 3 books out, you know. So I've got 14 out right now, which is not the deepest catalog on the planet, but it's good. It's moving right along. I also have a really dedicated fan base in terms of my newsletter. I have about a little over 11,000 readers, and they're all there to see pictures of my cat. That's really the whole reason why they subscribe to my newsletter. But I've got a great open rate and click rate and everything else. And so I don't know, I'm just able to make it work.
And do you find that series books work better than standalones?
I've never written a standalone, so I have no idea.
I mean, but for other authors.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I don't think standalones are really easy to do, no matter which platform you decide to go on to. But in terms of being a wide author, it's especially difficult, because one of the tricks to being a successful wide author is to put your first book to perma-free and advertise the hell out of that book. And then as it gets downloads, you get read through to the rest of the series. I do not advertise full priced books ever. I've never done it. I never will do it. There's no point to me to do it. I don't advertise new releases. I just simply tell my list about them, and they buy them. So yeah, if you don't have a perma-free, I don't know how you could be a wide author as easily. And the whole point of the perma-free is, hey, this is book 1. Now I've got 9 other books in this series. Go forth and read them.
So do you think that it does make sense, if you're a brand new author, you have zero footprint anywhere, to go ahead and start out on Amazon? Because you need, like, at least a series, you need a funnel, you need something to where you can make the first book free. So you may as well kind of capitalize on that early traffic and some of the tools that they do give you in Unlimited. But then as soon as you possibly can, start moving out and do it with dedication and not be in the middle of the road.
Right. I actually strongly suggest that people do not start out in Kindle Unlimited, only because, well, multiple reasons, but one of them is that Kindle Unlimited readers do not transfer. You may be that lucky person who hits the lottery and have your Kindle Unlimited readers choose to go with you when you start making them actually pay for your books. But the vast majority of them will not. And in fact, all you will really get out of it is a lot of angry emails from KU readers who are upset with you because they can no longer get your books for free. The other thing is that people tend to kind of get sucked into a little bit of a trap of, like, well, I may not be making that much, but at least I'm making something, and I should go wide later when I have a bigger, audience and I can afford to go wide. But if you have a bigger audience, it's again going to all be KU readers, because that's where you're at. And so when it's time for you to go wide later down the road, it's gonna be like, oh man, I don't know. Now all of my money is coming in and this is how I'm paying my bills, and I can't afford to go wide, and I'll just have to go wide later. And I'm a strong believer in setting out in the direction you actually want to go, And so start out wide, stay wide, and just be happy.
So you're basically of the mind that if it's going to be done eventually, just do it immediately and don't course correct later.
Yeah, it makes things really a lot more complicated. You're going to be upsetting the KU readers when you do go wide. They're not going to go with you. That base that you thought you were building up isn't going to do anything. It's a base made of sand. It's going to just wash away. And so really, why not start out wide? And yeah, you're not going to be making money either way. Honestly, you're not. The people who make a whole bunch of money with their first book out on Kindle Unlimited, it's like 1 in a million. And if you're going to be poor, why not be poor and start building up that wide base?
So do you think that this is it comes down to a mindset thing? So where a lot of authors, they want to think that we're dreamers by nature, right? That's what we do for a living. We sit down and we dream and we convince somebody else that our dream is worth paying attention to for 300 pages or whatever, right?
Right.
So we're used to telling ourselves stories. And I feel like a lot of authors tell themselves a very specific and rather damaging story, which is, I am the exception to the rule. And they think that either their story is so unique and amazing that they're going to be able to get readers to violate reader or buyer behavior, or that the bond is going to be so deep that they're going to be able to do that also, when in reality 99% of readers don't actually give a shit about any of that stuff. They just want to be entertained. And I think that one of the things that we've talked about a lot in the studio is the streaming model. And if you look at the way it has changed content consumption in the last 10 years or so, 10 years ago, if I wanted to watch a movie on Friday night, which I did and I do, I'm going to watch one tonight. I love Friday nights. It's movie time. I'm going to see something I've never seen before. But I used to always go out to the movie, or I would go rent something, or I would have my queue ready for Netflix and they drop that DVD on. And there was a lot of intentionality, like I'm going to go see this thing. But now I'm already subscribed to 8 different streaming services. So my first question is, what's already streaming that I could just get without having to go pay for it? So I do think that buying behavior sucks, on Kindle Unlimited, where they're just, buffet readers, just, snorting one book after another, not even taking time to chop it down. But
Yes.
but on the other hand, I know I do the same thing. And I think I'm, probably a more mindful consumer than most in that way. And still I do the same thing. So it's hard for me to believe that readers are doing that. Readers really are just, it's not that they don't want authors to have their money or anything like that. It's just, oh, well, this is easy because it's a click away. It's not an additional charge. It's like all this other friction.
Yeah. And so one of the things that people think is like, oh, okay, well, if you want a subscription service, you have to use Kindle Unlimited. But there are actually several different subscription services out there. Kindle Unlimited is by far not the only person in the room there. And so if you have readers who are price conscious, they want to be able to use a subscription service, you can either refer them to places like Scribd, Radish. Radish is kind of a different beast actually, but there's Kobo Plus. There's quite a few different Chenille, I want to say, is how you say that. Anyway, Bookmate, Bookshout. There are a bunch of different subscription services out there for books.
Do you think that is a growing trend?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I feel like that's getting bigger. The thing is that especially companies like Scribd have figured out how to do it in a way that is good for the author and good for the consumer and good for Scribd. And that kind of a win-win-win is not very common. And so that's the reason why I personally am a big proponent of Scribd, because it can allow you to have that all-you-can-eat model while also paying the author what they are worth. And so Scribd is a big deal, I feel like, and is growing all the time.
So I want to jump over to talking about Apple, because like I think Apple obviously it is one of the other big platforms. It is like I think that they seem to be getting like a larger and larger percentage of people actually using their platform because of just the amount of devices they have in the industry. I mean, like
Well,
a
it's built
lot of
in. You don't get to have an iPhone that opts out of iBooks.
no,
It's just
like
there,
it's
right?
just it's there. You already have an Apple account if you're an Apple user. So I think that they have like they stand in a really good position that way. But I'm wondering like how have you seen any changes in Apple or sort of what Apple's trajectory has been in the time that you've been working with Apple?
Yeah, so they actually just made a really big change in the last couple of months where you can now upload to Apple without needing to own an Apple device. And before that was
That's
not
so
possible.
necessary.
Yeah, so now you can have a PC and you can upload to their website without having to buy a MacBook before you can do so. So that I feel like is a pretty big change. My Apple sales are consistently growing just a little bit over time. They're my solid number two after Amazon. I should say, just for information's sake, I have, if you look at the big pie of how many my income streams, Amazon is the largest, but it's only 42% of the pie. And so the remaining 58% of the pie are all the other storefronts. And so that's another reason for me not to go into KU. I would lose 58% of my income. So, and I am not anywhere close to being alone in that. That's actually a very common thing for wide authors to make more money on the wide storefronts than they do on Amazon. So just something to keep in mind. Anyway, so Apple is the second largest. They have become a little bit more user friendly. I personally still recommend to new authors, and pretty much everybody actually, to get to Apple using a distributor rather than uploading direct. And there are a couple of reasons for that. If you use the Apple interface, they have got two different programs. One is a website and one is a program in order to manage your books on Apple. And I personally have overwritten a price in the system, not realizing it. When I was uploading a book in preparation for a BookBub, I was uploading a new file with, all the clean edits in it. It was going to be beautiful. It was going to be perfect. And I did not realize at the same time that the system changed my price. And I woke up the morning of my BookBub with an email from BookBub saying, "Oh yeah, actually turns out your book is not going out in our email with the Apple link in it because of this." So having two different ways of accessing Apple, they do two different things for the most part, but there's some overlap in the middle. That Venn diagram, there's an overlap, and that overlap can cause a lot of issues because you can change prices in one and it'll override it in the other, and you don't know it.
Wow.
And so, yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yes,
That's scary.
It is very scary. So for that reason, I recommend using a distributor. The other reason that I recommend using a distributor is that, as you guys mentioned before, Apple is like the people in the corner in the dark. Mark Leslie Lefebvre calls them the book ninjas, right? They're the Apple ninjas of the world. Like you don't see them come in, you don't realize that they're there until they've already run away, and you see them.
And then you're dead.
Yeah, right? No. And so they have a very small merchandising team. And if all the authors who are on Apple could reach that merchandising team at any point and talk to them, they would be completely overwhelmed. And so they intentionally make it very difficult to get in touch with their merchandising team. Authors who have access to them are not allowed to share that access with any other authors, and they hide that access very, very well. So you might run into them at a conference or something, a writers conference, but for the most part, it's very difficult to get the attention of the merchandising team.
Gotta join a fight club.
Right? Yes. And what if you do there stays there? No. So if you use a distributor, they have access to Apple all the time. Apple's constantly running promos through them. Apple honestly seems to prefer to work with distributors versus working with individuals, just because the distributors can do a lot of the hard work of making sure that the authors who are applying for a particular promo actually qualify for it. They can pick out the best of the applicants, and then they pass that along to Apple. And so Apple kind of already has everything cleaned up, and it's just easier for them to do. And so although I have access to their in-house promos directly, I have obviously access to their merchandising team, I have actually gotten into more promos through a distributor than I have from them directly reaching out to me and asking me to do something. So that kind of gives you a feel. They just prefer to work through the distributors. So that's where I recommend people go.
I didn't know that about the promos either. So do you have to then ask the distributor to consider you for promos, or do they come to you and say, hey, I've got these promos, I think you'd be a good fit?
So that really kind of depends. If you're doing a special, like big sale because you got a book bub and you're going to make this book free now, and you want to have some in-house love from Apple, you can reach out to your distributor and say, hey, I've got this book that's free, and I would like to see if I could get an in-house promo for it. Also, like Mark Leslie Lefebvre is in the group Wide for the Win, and he's constantly posting promos that are for Apple authors who get to Apple through Draft to Digital. Smashwords has an in-house list. Publish Drive has a dashboard that you can go in and you can look to see what Apple promos are available to apply for, and you can apply right there on the dashboard. StreetLib sends out emails and says, hey, Apple is looking for XYZ. If you've got a book that qualifies, contact us. So it kind of just depends on which distributor you use and also what you're trying to do.
Do you find it more difficult to get visibility on Amazon because you're wide?
Absolutely. I genuinely think that's one of the reasons why my percentages have been dropping. When I first went wide, 80% of my income came from Amazon. And then it dropped to 60, 65, and then it dropped to 50, and now it's down to 42. I don't do AMS ads. They suppress your ranking because you're not on Amazon, or you're not on KU. And they make no bones about it. They don't like it when you go wide. And so I'm one of those people that, for that reason, that just makes me even more stubborn in wanting to go wide.
Us too, Erin. We're right with you.
Now you just pissed me off.
Yeah, it's a little mafia for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
You ain't with us, you against us, right? And then just like there's nothing you can do.
Yep. Yeah. So there are authors who do really well in terms of running AMS ads and keeping their visibility up on Amazon. It is possible to do that. I just personally prefer not to give Jeff Bezos any more of my money.
Is it also a matter of just time management? Because something that you said earlier, which I think is worth circling back to, is managing ads is a job, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
If you can really focus on, because your marketing here is very elegant. It's very simple. Oh, I run a free booksy every 6 months to a perma-free book. Like Neve is in cold sweats most of the time thinking about how to manage a catalog of a couple hundred books and what gets ads at what time. And that is a heavy amount of not just work as far as pushing buttons and pulling levers, but it's mentally taxing to think about what am I going to do? How am I going to optimize that? And really you are saving quite a lot of time by, well, I would argue you're getting more product to market, but actually that's not true either. But
in my case, it's not, but I have health issues. Actually, I have fairly severe health issues. And then also I was trying to write the book Wide for the Wind, which Mark Leslie Lefebvre is now writing. But that's one of the reasons why it was such a long break between my last fiction book and my next fiction book, is that I spent about a year in there trying to write Wide for the Wind, and it was a disaster. So
Is
yeah,
that just because you didn't want to really write nonfiction? And
no, I mean, I tried, but the industry just moves so quickly. A great example of that is the Apple being able to upload direct. So one of the things that I talked about quite a bit in the book is that you want to use a distributor to get to Apple, because you can't upload direct if you don't have a Mac book. And so, and I do, right? I'm using right now a MacBook Air. My brother works for Apple, so it's not like I'm not familiar with Apple products. And I still severely struggle with their interface. It's just awful. It's just really awful. Anyway, where were
and
we
this
going?
is why they recommended that we talk to you.
Right, I know.
But that's a really good example. Like, I mean, the ability to take a year out to say, you know, like, I trying to work on a project, or you need to because you have health issues. Like, that's that's life. That's the stuff that happens for people, you know. And I think the ability to step back. I mean, like, I know, like, we're famous for write, publish, repeat, right?
Right.
So we have this ethos of like, just keep writing a bunch of books, but like, that's not always possible within the context of life, and there's curveballs and things like that. So actually, I find that really encouraging to hear, because you have a system that you operate by, and it's promos and newsletters. I mean, that's really clear. It's really elegant, as John said, but then also that means that you can take a break from publishing as an individual author. I think that's really good, because I know, like, I get nervous about, like, you know, if anything should happen, like what's going to happen with all of our Amazon releases, you know. So, and we're a team. A lot of
Yeah.
So-
And just so you guys know, I actually do have a PA. She does a lot of in fact, if you go, I don't know if I should admit this publicly, but if you go to like Facebook or Pinterest or Twitter or whatever, and there's a tweet or a post or something there, it was put there by my PA, not by me. I am not a social media person at all. I've really fought starting Wide for the Wind because I did not want to be on Facebook. I'm just not a big Facebook fan. And so I had a lot of people pushing me that I needed to do this. So eventually I just gave up and started Wide for the Wind. But yeah, I don't do my own social media. And I have a website developer who does my website stuff. I have a financial backer for my audiobooks. I'm getting into foreign translations, and I have a whole team set up for that. So I'm all about working with other people and creating a team, because like I said, I've got some pretty severe health issues. And so being able to work a normal 40-hour a week job is not really possible for me at this point.
So I have a question, and this is going to be kind of, I think, difficult to articulate, because I wouldn't expect anybody to give us a bunch of hard numbers or whatever, but just from the people that you've seen in general, I'm sort of wondering, so when we talk in percentages, like, it could mean anything. So if somebody's making half of their money wide and half their money on Amazon, that's very different if it's like, say $1,000 a month that they're making, where half of it is wide and half of it is big, versus like some, $10,000 a month, 100% KU income. So I'm curious whether do you have any idea if things are kind of apples to apples, like percentages, but also, are people making as much or more? Are there cases where it's definitively like, oh, you should definitely be wide monetarily, forget everything else?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not the richest person on the planet, right? Pretty sure we already figured out that's Jeff Bezos, but I am able to pay my bills and support my family. There are a lot of people in Wide for the Wind who are full-time authors, and I have been given numbers from people. There's an author in my genre, specifically Sexy Cowboys, who makes 6 figures a year. The majority of her income comes from wide storefronts. So honestly, the idea that you have to be in Kindle Unlimited in order to do well as an author is a really, if you think about it, a very bizarre idea to have, because Kindle Unlimited has only been around for 10 years or so. And so the idea that that's the only way to make money is, on the face of it, quite wild, honestly. How did people make money, 10 years before that, and 100 years before that, and 1,000 years before that? And so being in Kindle is just one way to make money, but there are a lot of very successful, there are 2 authors in Wide for the Wind I know specifically who are 7-figure authors. So if that answers your question. I'm not. But I also, my release schedule is just too slow.
Gotcha. All right, everyone's sort of quiet there. I don't think that we're out of questions. I mean, so like Apple, what are some of the best strategies, right? So you can get, obviously you can get
And
book
also
ads.
specifically for Apple too. So
Right.
because we have talked a little bit about wide, and I think that there are strategies that are wide versus KU, but within the actual conversation of wide, how does Apple, what's different / better about Apple than some of the other?
Right. And if it's sort of human curated, which, we know, if you can't necessarily get attention from, say, hand curation of something, what are the strategies can you use to try and get exposure and sales on Apple?
So one of the best things that you could do is put your pre-order up on Apple exclusively. Apple loves exclusive pre-orders, and they have a special place that they promote that. And so if you were to put your book up on Apple, say 9 months as an exclusive pre-order, gather up lots of pre-orders at that point, Apple gives you a bump when somebody orders it as a pre-order. So if I order a book today, but the book doesn't come out till next month, I'm getting a bump in terms of rankings on Apple today. Then when you decide, okay, it's time for this book to go up onto all storefronts as a wide book, then you contact Apple and you say, I'm ready to, pull this as being exclusive. And so they flip the switch, and it's no longer in their special corner of the world where they promote the pre-order specifically because it's exclusive. You advertise it to all of your all of your readers across all the platforms. And then on release day, every pre-order that had accrued in the system on Apple hits the system again on release day. So you actually get 2 bumps from Apple for a pre-order. The day that it was pre-ordered and the day that the book is released. And for this reason, a lot of Apple authors who have done a good job of promoting their pre-order on Apple will find that they hit the top of the charts on release day because they've got this big extra oomph behind them. Amazon doesn't do that. Amazon gives you credit the day that the pre-order is made. And so if you put your pre-order up on Amazon too far in advance, by the time the book actually goes live, your rankings are terrible, right? This is a really big difference between Apple and Amazon. And so I really recommend, you guys spoke of different strategies to do well wide. This is another thing, not just that helps you with Apple, but helps you with all wide storefronts, is having long pre-orders and a lot of time to gather up those pre-orders. But Apple especially rewards you for doing so. The other thing that Apple does is they have a top 150 list instead of a top 100 list. And so there's extra visibility on their list that you don't get on Amazon and a lot of other storefronts that just show the top 100. Another thing that Apple does that no other storefront does that I'm aware is review codes. You can get up to 250 review codes given to you. It doesn't matter if you use a distributor or if you go direct. You get 250 review codes. They're free to get. They're good for 28 days. There is 1 review code per person. So when somebody redeems that review code, then nobody else can use it. So it is a bit of a management headache. But when somebody redeems the review code, your book actually goes up just a little bit in the rankings on Apple.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, you don't get paid. Like Audible used to pay you for your review codes when they were being used, your promo codes. You don't get paid from Apple, but you do get a ranking boost from doing it. So Like I said, you can get up to 250. You can give them away to your ARC team. You can give them away as prizes. You can give them away however it feels best for your marketing strategy. And that is a really fantastic program that I know for a fact Apple feels like isn't being used very often. And so I know they would love to have more people use that ability.
Do people have to ask for those review codes? Like every time a book comes out, you ask and you get 250 new ones, or they're spread out over books?
Yeah, so you can get up to 250 for a specific book, but you can ask for 2 today and 3 tomorrow and 10 next week. You don't have to get all 250 at the same time. They are only good for 28 days. So I wouldn't ask for all of them at the same time unless you have a really good way of being able to distribute those codes. And you do have to go into the system. There's a way to do it direct, and then there's a way to do it through a distributor. So yep, 100% available either direction, but it's something you don't have to have any access to any merchandising team at Apple to access those promo codes. It's just a website.
Have you heard anything about future goings on at Apple that are, that aren't top secret and that sort of thing? I mean, I know they are very, very particular about that. We have heard many times, like, there's something coming out, but I can't tell you what it is, which we do too. So it's kind of fun. But I am curious about, I mean, this would be more of a global, like, maybe it's better to say global, like future for wide is maybe a better way to answer that question, like trends, since this is state of the industry. Have you seen anything like that or heard in your group?
I do see a lot of movement in the coin genre, coin world. I don't know how to say it, storefront. With Radish, there's been Dreamy, Shenio, Kiss. There's a couple of different apps that are coming out, and it's all about reading your books as serialized fiction. So you get the first, say, 5 chapters for free, and then you have to pay coins to unlock each chapter after that. And if someone were to actually sit down and pencil it out, it's more expensive to read a book this way for the most part. But people still
Sounds
love to do
obnoxious.
it. Yeah,
Well,
like
it's
it's
the in-app
crazy.
purchase thing, right? So there are people who will play a dumbass game like Jetpack Joyride and spend $30,000 on a 99-cent app. Like, it's nuts.
Yes, exactly. So that's something that I've been seeing coming in the wide world. Is there are new companies coming out all the time that are doing this coin serialization unlocking strategy. I mean, I mentioned Kiss. That's a company that hasn't even gone live yet, but they've already been out there, pushing and trying to get authors to sign up for them. And of course I did. So, I'll be able to report back later on how that went. But that is something that I think is really getting a big push because, as you said, like, people for some reason don't seem to mind as much spending money, like 3 coins at a time. That's different than spending $3. It doesn't, I don't know, coins are different in their brain. And so it's okay to spend 3 coins. And so
For you listening at home, it's actually not different. Money's money.
Right.
Wait,
Just
what?
in case you got lost there.
Yeah. Hey, don't tell the readers that though. I'm making good money. Anyway, so I feel like that's a big change. Another thing, of course, everybody talks about is audiobooks, and the audiobook world has changed drastically over the past 5 years. Before it was Audible. There was really not much point in going wide. Even for a diehard wide person like me, there wasn't much point in going wide there for a while in audiobooks. And that has changed drastically. And there's some big movement I see in the audiobook world, and it makes so much more sense now to be wide in your audiobooks than it ever did before. Library checkouts are making a big percentage of authors' money from audiobooks is coming from library sales. So that's been a really big change that I've been watching, and it'll be really interesting to see where it goes, especially the library part of things with this, plague that we have going on. Not a lot of people have spare cash running around, and so sales and checkouts and everything else through libraries has been increasing. And so I was a librarian in a former life. I don't think I mentioned that, but I was a librarian for 7 years and a library director for 18 months of that. And so seeing people go back to accessing books through libraries makes my heart happy.
Well, yeah, it's also kind of like that. There's so many apps now where you can connect up to your library and you can actually get library books onto your own devices,
From
just
your
like you
local
would.
library, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Yep.
it's really, really easy. Then, I mean, like, are you going to go and pay for it, or you could just download it for free and not leave the house? So that's really cool.
Exactly. And so when we were talking about subscriptions and such, I think I got sidetracked, but along with recommending Scribd, if you have a local library who has a robust audiobook and ebook program, that is absolutely the way to go. Libraries need usage numbers to justify their taxes to the local city council. And so when you use library services, that genuinely helps the libraries out. And so it saves you money, the author is making money, the library gets use, everybody wins. So I'm a big proponent of libraries, obviously.
All right. Anybody having final questions before we wrap with Erin about Wide? Anybody from the Peanut Gallery?
Maybe just I know I'm not Peanut Gallery. I'm talked too much.
You can be.
But what is the number one thing that you would recommend specifically for Apple if you're just starting out there and you're like, okay, I've heard this, I'm convinced, I really should be wide, and Apple is a large part of what I want to do. What is just the number one step? Even if it's as simple as, hey, just commit. Don't pull out because you don't see any results within a month. Like, what is the one thing that anyone listening to this could act on?
The very first thing before you go wide is that you should be setting up your accounts with all the different distributors, and you should be choosing how it is that you want to get to Apple. You can go direct. Your hairline won't appreciate it as you pull your hair out, but you can absolutely do that. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit biased against, just because I've had so many issues with Apple Direct.
It's very hard.
Yeah, they ate 2 of my pre-orders, completely just ate them. And I will never get those books sold. I just lost that money. So that's
Not like they're a big technology company.
Yeah, I know, right? So direct is not where I'm at, but whether you choose to go direct or you choose to go with the distributor, there are different pros and cons to each of the distributors and their relationship with Apple. And so you want to do a bit of research into which distributor you want to use, or if you do want to go direct. Setting up direct can also be incredibly difficult. If you're using a pen name, they have some really strict requirements in place in terms of being able to set up a business and not have your real name shown to the public. So reason number 437 to use a distributor. Anyway, and so I guess making a game plan is probably the number one most important thing. Deciding if you've already got books, how you're going to pull them out of KU and put them out wide. If you don't already have books, how is it that you're going to start establishing yourself on the wide stores and building up your wide platform. You should be setting up your BookBub profile. You should be building a website. You should be doing social media. There are all these things that need to be put into place before you just throw your hands up and say, I'm going wide, and run down the street. Because if you don't have, a lot of people who are in KU can get away with sending people to their Amazon author page, right? I want to know what books you write. Go to Amazon author page. Here's my books. The end. If you are wide, you have to have your own website. So things like that are all things that you should be setting up before you take the steps to actually go wide. One thing I did want to say that I had forgotten to say before, with my permit-free strategy, the read-through is much higher on Apple than it is on Amazon. So if you were to get 100 downloads of your free book on Amazon and 100 downloads of your free book off Apple, you're going to make significantly more from Apple because of that. Because there are a lot of hoarders of free books on Amazon that simply just don't exist on wide storefronts, period, but Apple definitely. If you think about the customer base of Apple users, they tend to like more expensive technology. They're not afraid to spend the money on those things. And so you can do really well with that customer base as long as you give them a free sample and let them realize, man, I love this person's writing. I am now willing to spend $4.99 on every other book that they have. So using the permafreeze is super important, but don't be discouraged if your permafree download numbers are much smaller on Apple or Google Play or any of the other wide storefronts, because you will most likely end up making more wide, even though you have more downloads on Amazon by a long shot.
So Apple, your traffic is a bigger problem, but your conversion is much better.
Yeah, exactly. So
I was just on Amazon. There are just so many free books on that top 100 that refreshes like every day. So people probably never even get around to reading your book. They forget about it. On Apple, it's
that's what she's saying. There's hoarders. They don't even
we
give a
didn't
shit
talk about
your
this
stuff.
a lot, but that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, with absolutely no disrespect intended to KU, it just seems like a very different. It is kind of it does have a bargain bin feel to it to me. That may be insulting. I'm sorry. But we have noticed that they're just a different, I don't know, like just a different, like they're a little bit more dedicated readers. They seem to be a little bit more interested in quality on average, I would say. And I mean, this could be total coincidence, but of the two people that I have, well, I mean, the company has had many, but for me and Sean, they came through, like for Hollywood stuff, came through Apple. Like they were like, I found your book on Apple. And if we hadn't been on Apple, if we'd only been in KU, I don't know that those people are looking there, because there's just so much, and a lot of it is sort of a disposable mentality. So I don't know.
And there is really such a difference, because if you think about it, when you are a reader of KU, you just have to pay $10 a month, or maybe not even that. They've been doing a lot of promotions where they've been discounting it, and it's $3 a month, and you can read all that you want. If a book really sucks, oh well, you just put it back out into the world and find another one and read that one instead. You don't have a lot of loyalty to a specific author because there's just so much to choose from. And like you said, it's kind of disposable. And on the wide platforms, people find you and fall in love with you. And they're dedicated, they're super fans. They read everything that you write because they found somebody that they love. But you have to convince them that they want to turn over $5 for your book. And so if you're a really crappy author, you're not going to be able to convince them to do that. So you have to, just out of sheer ability to pay your bills, have to be a better author when you are wide, because there isn't that forgiveness that comes from a reader thinking, well, whatever, I guess I paid my $10 this month.
It's just what we were talking about earlier. It's like a Netflix original can come on and you're like, well, that was kind of shitty, but whatever. I'm used to it. It's Netflix. Like your standard is a little bit different than
it is.
If you rent something from Apple or from Prime and you spend, $3 to watch it, you expect it to be a little better than the thing that you just watched by pressing play.
Yeah, exactly. So there is definitely that in play. So when, as a wide author, if you're getting discouraged because your permafrees aren't getting as many downloads on the wide storefronts, just give it time. Your sell through will I'm willing to guarantee will be higher on wide storefronts than they will be on Amazon. They just will be.
Yeah, there's more loyalty too. I mean, I've noticed this. Anytime where people are just burning through books, and KU has that feel, and bargain books have that feel, when people can just burn through stuff, there's very little loyalty for any one thing. I mean, if for no other reason than it's just logistically difficult to keep track when you read 3 books a week or something like that, to form a bond with any one book or one author. So that's there too.
Yeah, for sure.
I read like that. I read 2 books a week. And then because of that, it's hard. So like there's those people that I love, but I will have to go and set reminders that their books are coming out, and everything else. I'm like, I couldn't tell you half the authors I've read this year.
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the things that's super important of being a wide author is your newsletter. So I have a newsletter magnet. I'm sure everybody probably knows what that is. So I use that to attract readers to my newsletter so that I can then sell them, hopefully at some point in the future, more of my books. And so that's how they get reminders that they need to go and buy my book. But I send very personable, very chatty, very friendly emails out. I have pictures of my cat in every one of them. Her name is Jasmine the writing cat, and she's my buddy. And so, I've got people who've literally written me fan mail from their cat to my cat. And I mean, there's just this bond there, this love that I don't feel really happens with KU authors because you are disposable.
Yep. All right. Well, on that point, then let's wrap up. Erin, thanks so much for being on. Wide for the Win on Facebook. What else do people need to know about?
Yeah. Well, Mark Leslie Lefebvre is writing the book Wide for the Win, and I will be writing the foreword. That's going to be coming out in February. Definitely, please do join us on Facebook because we've just got an awesome group. Like I said, we've got BookBub and we've got Barnes and Noble. We've got special promotions that people put together just for our group. We have newsletter companies who have come in who have given us special promo codes that are available just to widelings. That's what we call ourselves. And so it's a pretty rockin' place, if I do say so myself. And I learn from it literally every day. I love it. So be sure to join us there. Even if you hate Facebook, just bookmark our website, our group, and then you don't have to go anywhere else, I promise. I never do. I don't go to my main feed. Won't do it, especially during election time. I won't do it. So
if you join the group, do you have to use all three of Mark's names? Because I just got used to saying his last name.
Yeah. I literally put a note in my computer of how to spell his last name because, yeah.
I've done that.
Yes. His last name, I love you, Mark. You're awesome, but your last name is different.
Being Canadians.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it because in my head, I'm pronouncing it Lefebvre.
Yeah, right. And for a couple of years, I literally thought that's how you pronounced it, and then I switched it over to Lefevre. I thought that's how you pronounced it.
I thought you pronounced it from Kobo.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's only been fairly recently that I figured out that it's actually Lefebvre. I was like, how do you get Lefebvre out of that name? There's no way. Oh, French people.
That's Neve.
Maybe we can get Mark. Maybe we can get Mark Lefevre and Dagus Vegas together. What do you guys think? That'd be awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, Erin, and to everybody who's listening. Thanks for listening to the Story Studio podcast. Apparently, this isn't the end, so there's more to come of the stage.
I was hoping it was the end. I was just gonna go.
Oh, it's the
Dave's
end
ready
of
to bail.
recording, I think, Dave. So
No, I know. No, I mean the end of the podcast, like the
He's
series.
out.
Oh, and possibly
done.
your
I'm
life.
over.
All right. Looking for that not endorsed by Dave seal of non-approval for the podcast. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Adios.